Good morning, day 264, and it is time to talk about the law of paradox. I talk about that a lot, but I'm titling today that. I kind of was really struggling. I'm going to talk, this is deep stuff. I feel like a broken record. Romans chapter 10, and Paul is giving a really good message here. It's good news. It's like all are welcome. All are welcome. But how does it work? You've got to believe. That's all you got to do. You believe through faith. That's it. No earning, no law. We've tried that. It doesn't work. It's through faith alone. And the paradox that I wanted to talk about today, some words that we're going to talk about are righteousness and humility, and even the word humble and the word human. So where to start? Okay, so the temptation of the human, and that we've learned from the law, and that we keep learning every day in our own lives, is that we have a tendency as humans to be self-righteous. I know the way, this is what works for me. And when you're self-righteous, you need to tell others about it. You tend to look at others and put others in other categories. Like if I'm right, then somebody has to be wrong. That's the paradox. And God calls us to be loving, non-judgmental, all of these things. Well, by the very virtue, and this is because of the law of paradox, as soon as we think of ourselves as right or righteous in and of ourselves, guess what we do? I know the way, and this even happens all the time in religion. This is the problem with religion in general, whether it's Christian, Hindu, Buddhist, like whatever the religions are. My way is the right way, and you need to get it right. And we kind of wag our fingers. We do it in the world of fitness, in the world of nutrition and health, and like all the areas. Parenting, parents judging other parents. This is the right way to parent. You're doing it wrong. All of these ways that we just find ways to be self-righteous. And it's usually by following a set of rules or doctrine or, a belief system. And then comes along Jesus and just throws that table of law up and says, no, this is not how we do it. This is not how you do it either. And the only way for humans to be righteous is through God, something kind of outside of themselves. But then remember, we're told about that paradox. It's the outside of us, but within us, and in, out, what's happening here. But we can't self-define ourselves as righteous and then find righteousness in our own actions and our own this or that because of the law of paradox. The law of paradox, once we do that, then that's when, the finger comes out, whether we want to or not. It's just humans are built to judge. And judgment is not always a bad thing. But we're told, Jesus came and said, look, stop judging each other. That's my job. That's God's job. You just need to worry about yourself. And so through the righteousness of God, it's like we get relieved of that burden. We can just be right. There's no earning. There's nothing we can do to earn it. We don't deserve it. Like all the things that humans in our own way of becoming righteous do. Does that make sense? And then as I was writing the overall message that I've been getting from the Bible all year long, the number one thing God asks from us one of the characteristics to develop in ourselves is humility or being humble. And so I was writing that down this morning and I was like, What else starts with hum? Human. We just don't pronounce it that way, right? Well, at least in English, we don't. But the root word of human itself is hum. Well, homo is man, so you go back to the Latin and the Greek. Homo is man, but then it combined with humus, or hummus is how I like to say it. I was thinking about, hummus that you eat. But hummus means ground or lowly, earth. So when we think of ourselves as self-righteous, we're putting ourselves above. We're not being lowly. We're not remembering that we're just earthlings and human and of the earth. No, we start to put ourselves up there. And that is what we're, repeatedly told by God. Stop doing that. Stop doing that. And yet we can't seem to help ourselves. And then this way of believing in something like Jesus, in God, what is it requiring of us? Humility, humbleness, right? You can't, it's a preceding thing. I've got to believe the unbelievable. It includes the law of paradox. I've got to believe the unbelievable. That's faith. In my mind, what seems impossible is possible. Having faith in somebody who died and came back to life and who was fully divine and God, that's a paradox. And I've got to humble myself in order to believe such things. And then Paul does, he starts quoting Isaiah. He brings in some quotes from Isaiah. And then he also brings in, and it's like he's addressing some of the counterpoints or the arguments that people might have. Well, how can people believe if they don't know Jesus and they've never heard the word and they've never gotten this message? And what about all of those people? And then he goes back and quotes Psalm 19 as well. And guess what Psalm 19 is? The rising of the sun and the setting of it, the nature, the heavens that proclaim the message and the words without ever saying a word. No one, because we live on earth, we are earthlings, we are lowly earthlings, humans. We have eyes and we can see all around us that proclaim, you are not everything. You are one thing in everything. I am everything. There is more than just you. And there's more than our eyes can even see. And how much are we learning every day, even through quantum physics and metaphysics and epigenetics and all these things that study basically the unseen. And even we have evidence of things that we can't see, that are laws at work. We have gravity, wind blows. We can't see all of that. We can't see air. So the temptation for humans to not believe based on logic or tangibility is a false one. It's self-deceiving. It's self-righteous. And this is the paradox that we're presented with. And the only way I can be humble and non-judgmental is to receive and remember that I'm humble. I am human, I am earthly, I'm lowly, I don't know everything, and I don't have the perfect logic, I don't have all the facts. And which allows me to then look at myself and give myself grace and compassion. It allows me to look at you and go, wow, gosh, my eyes and my brain are telling me while I'm looking at you and observing your life and your choices that you're a pretty dumb person. This happens all the time. You're kind of a dummy. And then I can go, oh, I don't have all the facts. I don't know their life. I don't know the full story. I'm just seeing a little like snippet, a little clip. And here I am making judgments. And wow, they could look at me in a little clip like that and go, wow, she's a dummy. What's wrong with her? Based on their life experience and what they know and blah, blah, blah. This is the trouble that we get into as humans. Excuse me. And this undeserved grace, being humble, human, that says, wow, gosh, that's why, going out in nature and just looking up at the stars, looking up at the vastness, getting your head out of your own, and your own life, you're like, oh yeah, there's so much more that's going on than just what's going on in my little head or my life. Even though it's a very big deal to me, I can be pulled out of that. That only happens with God or whatever your belief system that's outside of yourself. Anyway, so I thought that was interesting to do that root word study on humans and remembering the very label that we have is that we are lowly of the earth creatures. We didn't create the heavens and the stars. Something did. And why not? Why not believe? Why not? What is it going to hurt you? To me, there seems to be only upside to really following the way. Now, if you try to do it the way of the law and legal and rule following, and even though you call yourself a believer, start falling into using religion to be self-righteous and start condemning and labeling others and creating a country club of a church or participating in a church that treats itself and other people like it's a private membership, then you might want to reevaluate your belief system, because that is not the way of Christ. Now, that doesn't mean while we can welcome and be non-judgmental, that we're, conversely, those of us that tend to be so non-judgmental like to also try to convince ourselves that it's up to us to save other people. So there's the other extreme that still is self-righteous, but that can even be more self-deceiving because you can fall into the trap. Either way, it's a trap of pride. Whether you go around trying to be a savior to other people and trying to convince them that they need to, all we can do is be messengers. That's what Paul says in this. Like, we're just told to go out and be messengers. And what people do with the message is their responsibility. And there's a judge up there or wherever, if there is a day of judgment, that is not our responsibility. So we need to get ourselves out of the judgment business and only in the message business. Receiving the full message, to be humble, to be human, and be messengers. Do your best in your own life, period. And let people live their lives. God gave each person a life and free will to do with, and that's their journey to walk and their consequence to have. And some of us, so the self-righteousness, it's can go either way depending on your personality and how pride and those things tend to show up in your life. But the law of paradox will help you to understand this, that as soon as you put a label on something, then the opposite has to exist. And so, yeah, ponder that one. This is something that I had a personal kind of breakthrough, because I have had the temptation and the struggle my whole life to try to be so good. I was trying all the time to be so good. Wanted people to like me, wanted to be thought of as good, I wanted to think of myself as good, and just trying to find all these ways to just run around being good. And not taking care of myself in the process, thinking that only meant serving others, which that doesn't work either. That is not anywhere in the gospel, or the Bible for that matter, to treat yourself as less than. It says think of yourself less, but it doesn't tell you to think less of yourself. As a matter of fact, it's quite the opposite. If we are little temples running around and supposed to be good messengers, how can we do that if we're not treating ourselves with the same love and kindness? If God lives in us and we're living for God, how can we, so many of us trash the house of God? Because we think, again, that's another way to prove how good we are. Ugh, it's just mind-blowing sometimes when you realize some of the truth of your own behavior and your own, like, this is what the self-mind tries to do, the self-righteous mind tries to do. It's trying to be good in its own strength. And by its very nature, it can't. That's why we need God. We need to see ourselves as righteous only in God's grace, only in God's gift of love. Then that's the only way we can actually be righteous, which means we're humble and we go, yeah, I'm not this on my own, in and of myself. I can't. It's impossible. But I can receive it from God and it's a gift that I can receive. And then when I can really receive it for what it is and the magnitude of it, which when you lift your eyes up and look at the magnitude of the world, the natural world, you can't help but be in awe and in gratitude and remember your place in it when our brain tries to make us little g gods. And it's the world according to, Felicia and Mary and Susan and so. Yeah. Breathe it in. Breathe in the only form of righteousness that we can ever actually have as humans. It's not our own. Yeah, it doesn't depend on us. We can't do it. Because we're required to be humble, human, lowly, earthly. That's it. And be loving towards other people, and seeing them for more than what you see, seeing their full potential. They were a seed at one time just like you. We all have the full potential. That doesn't mean you let people mistreat you or you put up with bad behavior. Again, people are responsible for their own actions. But you can give them a message of hope and plant a seed or reactivate that seed that's already there within them. All right. I hope that's encouraging. I'm certainly encouraged today. And it's going to be a beautiful day in this part of the country. I'm actually headed to Nashville today and taking my daughter and her friend to a concert. And we're staying right next to the venue. I'm letting them go kind of by themselves. They're almost 17, 16. And that's going to be fun. Maybe I'll take myself to a nearby park and walk. I think it's supposed to be in the 90s today. And so tomorrow morning, maybe I'll come to you from an interesting place, and maybe I'll go scout out a little park. I can do my morning walk in Nashville before we head back home. So anyway, whatever's going on in your life, take a deep breath, maybe get outside and remind yourself that whatever's going on, especially if you're in a hard time right now and you're suffering, or you have somebody in your life suffering, just go out and receive some maybe awe and wonder and some reminders that this too shall pass, and that it's going to be okay. There is hope. No, I felt like I needed to give that message to somebody. So, all right, love you, rise and shine. See you tomorrow.